There's a sparkly stiletto sitting on my kitchen counter. Just one covered in something that looks like champagne and regret. It's still damp. It reeks like a nightclub floor. And no, I didn't find it in our closet. It was mailed to me inside a plastic grocery bag. No return address, just the heel and a note. You should know what she did in this. That was it. No signature, no explanation. Just that one sentence scribbled in blue pen on the back of an airport shuttle receipt from New Orleans. I've read it so many times. I know every ink smear and crease by heart. That's when my stomach did that thing tightens like a fist and refuses to let go. Because just days earlier, my wife Fern told me she was flying down there for her sister's bachelorette party. I even drove her to the airport. I helped carry her suitcase. I waved like an idiot when she disappeared into TSA like it was some movie ending. She didn't even look back. At the time, I thought, she deserves this. A weekend of fun, dancing, ridiculous cocktails shaped like flamingos. I stayed home with our beagle, cleaned the house, even started prepping a little surprise dinner for when she returned. I was going to make the chili she likes. I was going to light candles. I was going to tell her I missed her without sounding clingy. But now I'm standing in my kitchen like a crime scene detective, holding a glitter-covered heel and trying not to vomit. I didn't call her. Not yet. I couldn't. I just stood there replaying everything in my head. Her overpacked suitcase, the way she barely kissed me goodbye, how she said she might not have service much because they were doing a swamp tour. A swamp tour? Really? I opened my laptop. I told myself I wasn't snooping. I was investigating. There's a difference, right? Her sister's social media, nothing. Her cousins locked. But one of the other girls, someone named Riley, who I'd only met once at a Christmas party, had her profile wide open. I clicked through a dozen filtered shots of drinks and selfies and neon lights until I hit a video. It was grainy, dark, probably recorded on a cracked screen, but the audio clear as day. "You only get one bachelorette weekend," someone yelled. Laughter whistles. And then someone shouted, "Take it off, Fern." Wow, I froze. My heart didn't skip. It slammed. The camera panned, catching a glimpse of my wife in the center of the room, dancing in that silver dress I helped zip 2 nights ago. She was barefoot, holding the matching glittery heel in her hand. The heel I now had sitting in a plastic bag on my counter. And then she stepped onto a table, grabbed a microphone, and what she said next, I'll never forget. If Nolan saw this, he'd faint. Laughter. A guy's voice shouted, "He doesn't have to know, baby." And Fern, she didn't even flinch. She just smiled and danced harder. I didn't finish the video. I closed the laptop. I sat on the floor. Max the beagle crawled onto my lap like he sensed I was unraveling. The clock said 1:14 a.m. The message notification came at 11:17. Unknown number, no text, just a video file. I clicked, and that was the moment the fantasy ended and the real nightmare began. I remember hesitating before I hit play. Something in me hoped it was a mistake, that it be a spam link or some prank, that maybe this was all a misunderstanding, some cruel coincidence that would end with Fern laughing and saying, "You thought that was me?" But that hope didn't last longer than 3 seconds into the video. The screen lit up with shaky footage. Loud music thumped in the background, bass heavy and disorienting. The camera wobbled as someone pushed through a crowd, laughter echoing all around. For a second, the view went dark, then settled on a hotel suite. Luxurious, dimly lit, filled with women in matching sashes and glittering dresses. And in the center, glowing under purple lights, like the twisted star of a show, was Fern. Her hair was up, her cheeks were flushed, her smile wild. She wasn't just tipsy. She was somewhere else entirely unfiltered, unleashed, sitting in a tall chair, legs crossed, drink in hand, with that damn heel dangling from her finger like a charm. The one on my counter. The one that didn't belong in a bag mailed anonymously to our home. Someone yelled, "All right, let's bring him in." And the crowd erupted in whistles. Then came him, a man, shirtless, muscular, the kind of guy who probably gets stopped for selfies at the beach. He strutted in with too much confidence, wearing a bow tie and tight pants that left little to the imagination. He approached Fern slowly, theatrically, like this had all been planned. She didn't move, just giggled and sipped her drink. He knelt in front of her, ran a hand along her thigh, and she leaned in, right into the camera and said, "My husband has no idea. He still thinks I'm singing karaoke with the girls." Then she kissed him. Not a joke, not a game. A long, deep, intentional kiss. I paused the video. My hands were shaking. My breath was shallow. My throat felt like it had been coated in gravel. I didn't want to see more, but I had to. I had to know how far this went. I hit play again. The rest of the clip didn't show anything explicit. Thank God. But it didn't need to. The way she touched him, the way her friends cheered, the way no one looked even slightly uncomfortable, told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't something that got out of hand. This was planned, filmed, celebrated, and now it was being sent to me. I scrolled back to the message. Still no name, no explanation. Just that video. Whoever sent it wanted me to see, to know, to shatter whatever illusions I had left. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the kitchen floor with Max curled up beside me, the glittery heels still sitting on the counter like a mocking trophy. At some point, I think I started talking to it, whispering things like, why and was I not enough? Like it might answer me. Of course, it didn't. By morning, I still hadn't messaged Fern. I hadn't even opened her texts. She'd sent one at 3:11 a.m. that just said, "Babe, you awake?" LOL, we're being ridiculous tonight. Yet, I'd seen the irony was too much. By 7 a.m., I was back at the front door, pacing. I thought about calling her, about telling her I knew, about asking if any of this meant something or if it was all just for fun. But I couldn't even form full thoughts. My mind was sprinting in every direction, crashing into walls made of disbelief, anger, heartbreak, and shame. God, the shame. I imagined her on the plane right now, maybe sleeping off a hangover, or maybe joking with her sister about the crazy weekend they just had, completely unaware that I had evidence proof that while she was dancing on tables and kissing strangers, I was home washing her favorite sweater and planning a dinner she'd never eat. The doorbell rang at 9:42 a.m. Another envelope, no name again. Inside, printed screenshots, 6 of them. Still images from the video. Fern's face frozen mid-laugh, one close-up of the kiss. Another of her holding the heel, one with her arms wrapped around the guy's neck. The last one was the worst. Her friends clapping, smiling, looking on like they were proud of her. Like I was some joke, some obstacle she'd outgrown. And on the back of the last printout, another note, just 3 words this time. Check her cloud. I stood there numbing photographic evidence of a version of my wife I didn't know existed. I didn't want to believe it, but the weight of it was too heavy now. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't just one night. This was intentional, documented, shared, almost performed. I knew what I had to do next. I opened my laptop again, logged into the shared photo account we rarely used, the one we set up years ago to automatically back up our travel pictures. And what I found there would make the video look tame in comparison. I hesitated before logging into the shared cloud. It was one of those dusty digital spaces we hadn't used much in years. The kind of account you forget exists until it auto-syncs photos from a trip and sends you a memory 2 years later. We made it early in our marriage, back when we were still excited about matching mugs and photo albums. The password was still the same: Fern and Nolan forever. I typed it with trembling fingers. I wasn't sure what I expected to find. A few new photos, maybe an innocent group shot that would give me some sense of context. Some tiny flicker of a redeeming explanation. Something I could latch on to and tell myself maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But that hope died about 12 seconds in. The first photo that loaded wasn't innocent. It was Fern on that same hotel bed from the video, dressed in a silky robe, eyes half-lidded, lips curled in a suggestive smirk. The timestamp said 2:03 a.m., the exact time I was curled up on the couch rewatching old home videos of us carving pumpkins last fall. I couldn't even process the contrast. The next few pictures were more of the same. Not explicit enough to get flagged or taken down, but suggestive in ways that left nothing to the imagination. Her robe slipping off her shoulder, her legs draped over a man's lap. And always that damn heel somewhere in the shot, like it had become a symbol of the night. But it wasn't just the images. There were videos. I clicked on one without thinking. It was short, 10 seconds. Someone off camera said, "Say something for Nolan." Fern looked directly into the phone, laughed and slurred, "Hi, babe. I'm being so good tonight. I swear. Look at me." Then she turned and kissed the man beside her on the cheek. He made a face, then pulled her in by the waist, both of them falling back onto the bed in a pile of giggles. I could hear her sister in the background howling with laughter. The camera cut off mid-screen. I stared at the screen, at her face, at the playfulness in her voice, the cruel mockery of it. They were laughing at me, not just behind my back, but through a camera lens like I was a joke. A character in a comedy none of them realized was my life. I closed the browser. My face was hot, my hands numb. I felt like my entire marriage had been rewritten behind my back. How long had she been like this? How long had I been the oblivious man doing on a version of Fern that didn't exist anymore? Or maybe never did. I needed air. I stepped outside and sat on the porch steps. Max followed me till like he sensed something was wrong. I buried my hands in his fur, desperate for something real, something that hadn't lied to me. And that's when my phone buzzed. It was her, a FaceTime request. I let it ring out. I couldn't bring myself to look at her face. Not yet. Not after what I'd just seen. Then came the texts. "Fern. Hey, just landed. Airport's a mess. LOL. You up, Fern? OMG, I'm starving. Can we get breakfast, Fern? Also, you're going to laugh. I lost a shoe. Long story. We'll explain later." That last one nearly made me drop the phone. She knew. Maybe not that I knew, but she knew what had happened. And she was already laying the groundwork. The LOL texts, the light-hearted tone, the casual updates. She was already trying to rewrite the narrative before I even opened my mouth. I didn't reply. I didn't block her either. I just sat there in the morning haze, trying to remember the last time I had felt genuinely safe in our marriage. And I couldn't. I heard her key in the lock around 9:45 a.m. The front door creaked open, and suddenly the air felt thinner. Her voice called out, light and breezy, like nothing had happened. "Noli, I brought you coffee." "Babe?" I didn't answer. I waited until she stepped into the kitchen inside the plastic bag on the counter, the heel, the screenshots, the printed note. I stood in the hallway and watched the smile vanish from her face. Her body stiffened. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the bag. Then she turned slowly and saw me standing there. I didn't say a word. And for the first time in years, neither did she. We stood there for what felt like a full minute, without saying anything. The air between us was thick, electric with tension, like a storm was building in the walls. Fern hadn't even put down her suitcase yet. It was still clutched in her hand, halfway tipped over, like she couldn't decide whether to drop it or bolt right back out the front door. Her eyes kept flicking between me and the bag on the counter, as if her brain was running calculations she hadn't prepared for. I spoke first, quietly, almost too quietly. "Who sent me to heal?" She blinked. Her expression shifted from frozen shock to faux confusion. I knew that look, the one she used when she got caught forgetting someone's birthday or breaking a glass she blamed on the dishwasher. It was performative, rehearsed. But this wasn't broken glass. This was glass buried in my chest. "What?" she said, managing a weak laugh. "Wait, what heel?" I nodded toward the counter. "The one in the bag? The one you lost, remember? You said so in your text." "Long story." "Well, I'd really love to hear it." She finally set the suitcase down slowly, like moving too fast might make something explode. Her eyes darted around the room. Anywhere but me. And when she spoke again, her voice had that fake cheer layered on top of defensiveness. "Oh my God, Nolan, it's not what you think." "Okay, you're being super dramatic right now. It was just a party. Things got wild. People filmed stuff, but it was all jokes. I swear I stayed quiet." "Bachelorette weekends get crazy. Okay, that's like the whole point. It's not real. Nobody takes it seriously. It's just fun." I didn't know anyone was recording. That guy, he was a dancer, a performer. He's literally paid to make girls scream. I didn't do anything. "Nolan," I picked up one of the printed screenshots. The one where her arms were wrapped around his neck, head tilted, lips an inch from his. I held it out without a word. She flinched when she saw it. For a split second, the mask cracked, but she caught herself, let out a short laugh, and waved her hand. "Okay. Yes, that looks bad. I get it. But you're seeing a moment out of context. I didn't cheat on you. I don't know. I got caught up. I was tipsy. I barely even remember half of that night. Do you really want to throw away our marriage over a stupid video someone sent you?" "I've seen the cloud," I said. Her mouth snapped shut. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. I watched the color drain from her face. Her eyes flicked again, not in confusion now, but in panic. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally leaned on the island counter and whispered, Okay. What exactly did you see?" I let that hang in the air, let her squirm in it. She was no longer in control of the narrative, and she felt it. She was scrambling to figure out how much I knew, how much I didn't, what she could still salvage. "You tell me," I said flatly. That pushed her to the edge. Her voice snapped. "This is ridiculous. So what? You dig through my stuff while I'm gone, and now you think you've got the moral high ground?" "What? Nolan, are you going to play victim now? Make me into the bad guy because I had one wild weekend? I didn't dig." I said, "Someone sent it all to me. Video, screenshots, even the cloud password. You were being recorded, Fern. Not just by your friends, by someone who clearly wanted me to see what you were doing." Her face contorted. Part horror, part fury. Wait, who? Who would do that? I was hoping you'd tell me. She shook her head like it physically hurt. I don't know. Maybe Riley. She's always jealous. Ulrika. She was mad I didn't pick her as maid of honor. I don't know, Nolan. People are snakes when they drink. That was her defense. That everyone else was a snake. Except the one who'd sunk her teeth into me. I leaned back, exhausted. I felt empty, not angry anymore. Not shocked, just tired. Like I'd been holding a wall up for hours, and now it had finally crushed me. I just want the truth, Fern, I said. Whatever's left of it. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for a flicker of a moment, I saw something familiar in her face. Regret maybe, or recognition, but it passed as quickly as it came. Her next words weren't whispered. They were sharp, cold. Then you'd better start asking better questions. And with that, she picked up her suitcase, he still in the bag, and walked upstairs like this was my mess. Like I was the one who needed to explain myself. I didn't move for a long time after Fern went upstairs. I just stood there surrounded by the silence she left behind and stared at the empty hallway like it had something else to confess. There was no slam of the bedroom door, no stomping or sobbing. She didn't even look back. She walked up like someone who decided they were already done, and maybe it had been for longer than I realized. But the more I thought about her reaction, the more something started gnawing at me. It wasn't just what she said, it was what she didn't say. No real apology, no real denial, just deflection, panic, and eventually cold dismissal. Like she had rehearsed it, like she had expected something like this to happen eventually, and already had her script ready to perform. The pieces were starting to move, but the picture still didn't make sense. Who would send me that video? Who would mail the heel? Who would know to direct me to the cloud, unless they were close, really close? And then I heard it. A sound that hadn't registered earlier, tucked behind the noise of my own spiraling thoughts. The faint whir of a fan, a gentle snore, the crinkle of shifting paws on the carpet. Max, our beagle, still curled up on the couch in the living room, still resting his head in the lap of the only other person who had been in our house all weekend, Fern's cousin, Melanie. She looked up when I stepped into the room, phone in hand, one leg curled beneath her. She was dressed in Fern's old hoodie, sipping from a mug that I swear was still warm from the last time I used it. Her expression was unreadable. Not surprised, not smug, just still. The kind of stillness you only see in people who've already braced themselves for the fallout. "You're awake," I said, though the words felt stupid. Of course she was. She'd been waiting for what? I didn't know yet. She nodded once. She didn't deny it. Did she? I blinked. What? Melanie set the mug down on the side table, folded her arms. I asked if she denied it. The videos, the pictures, all of it. I stood frozen. How do you know about that? She tilted her head slightly like she couldn't believe I hadn't figured it out already. I sent it. Everything in me went still. My breath hitched, my spine tensed, my hands curled into fists without meaning to. You what? She nodded slowly. I didn't want to. For months, I told myself it wasn't my place. But then this weekend happened and I couldn't protect her anymore. Not when she was going out of her way to humiliate you. I sat down, or maybe collapsed. I'm not sure. She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She looked tired, not unlike how I felt. I've known for a while, she continued. It started small little lies. Flirty messages on her laptop when she forgot to close the screen. That guy you saw in the video? That's not the first time. Not even close. She used to meet him after her yoga classes. She told me once, drunk at Thanksgiving, that she didn't think you'd ever find out, that you were too soft, too trusting. She laughed when she said it. Nolan laughed. My ears were ringing. A kind of dull static hummed behind my eyes. This was too much. I thought I had already taken the worst of it. I thought the video was the low point. But hearing this, the fact that people knew that someone had listened to her mock me behind my back, it made the floor tilt beneath me. She said I was soft, I whispered. Melanie leaned forward, eyes sharp. She said a lot of things. Things I'm not even sure you're ready to hear yet. But she's not going to stop lying to you unless you show her you already know the truth. Why now? I asked. Why tell me all this now? She swallowed. Because this weekend changed things. I wasn't supposed to be on that trip, but I went. I saw everything. I heard her say she was thinking of leaving you after the summer. Said she wanted to start over while she still looked good in a bikini. I didn't even feel pain anymore. It was something past pain now, something quieter, something heavier. It wasn't heartbreak. It was disillusionment. Like I had woken up from a dream and discovered the person beside me had never really been there. Does she love him? I asked, though I hated myself for still caring. Melanie shook her head. I don't think she even knows what she feels. But I do know this. She doesn't respect you. Not anymore. And you deserve better than being the quiet husband waiting at home while she parades herself like she's single. She stood up, picked up her bag. I'll be gone before she comes back down. I didn't want to get in the middle of this, Nolan. But you needed the truth, and now you have it. I watched her leave. Max whimpered softly at the door when it closed behind her. I looked back at the kitchen, at the stairs, at the house that no longer felt like mine. Then I picked up my phone and started typing. This time, not to her. This time, I was writing something for myself. Something that would change everything. I didn't sleep that night, not even a minute. I just sat at the dining room table with the lights off, staring at the dim glow of my laptop screen as the clock crept toward dawn. Max lay curled beneath the table, twitching occasionally in his sleep. Like even his dreams couldn't find rest in this house anymore. Upstairs, Fern didn't come down once. No texts, no footsteps, nothing. Like we were already living in different worlds under the same roof. But I wasn't just sitting in silence. I was writing every thought, every lie, every moment that had felled off, but I'd chosen to ignore. Every time she said she was just running late, every weird excuse, every too casual laugh when I'd asked harmless questions about her weekends away, I typed it all out. Not like a diary, like a record. I needed to see it to remember that I hadn't imagined the slow unraveling of my marriage. Then I wrote her a letter, not angry, not dramatic, just clear. I told her I saw everything. I told her I heard the way she talked about me. I told her I wasn't going to chase her anymore. And at the very end, I wrote the one line that had been burning in the back of my mind since Melanie left. You're free now, but so am I. I printed it, folded it neatly, left it on her pillow upstairs. Then I got to work. By the time the sun cracked over the edge of the neighbor's roof, I had pulled my suitcase from the back of the closet, packed every essential I could fit, and left the rest behind. I wasn't running. I was removing myself, reclaiming space. She had slowly shrunk without my permission. I canceled our shared credit card, froze the joint account, logged out of every shared platform we had, and set up a new one in my own name. I backed up every video and screenshot, every photo, every message I'd been sent. I didn't plan on using them, but I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story if she tried to flip the script. Then I booked a cabin 3 hours north. Remote, quiet, no distractions, just trees, cold air, and time. The one thing I hadn't given myself in years. I left Max with my sister, who didn't ask questions when I showed up at 6:30 in the morning looking like I'd walked out of a car crash. She took one look at me, opened her arms, and said, "Stay as long as you need." By the time Fern came downstairs, I was already gone. I turned off my phone that afternoon, not out of spite, just out of necessity. I couldn't keep watching the notifications roll in. Couldn't keep second-guessing if I should answer her. I needed to step away from the wreckage to see how far the fire had really spread. When I turned it back on a day later, there were 17 missed calls, 9 voicemails, dozens of texts. The first few were sharp, defensive. "Where the hell are you? You're seriously going to ghost me? Grow up and talk to me, Nolan." Then they shifted. "Can we just talk?" I didn't mean any of it like that. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. And then came the final ones. The ones I read over and over. Not because they meant anything, but because they finally told me who she really was. "You're just proving my point. You never fight. You just leave. You think this makes you strong? You're still the same pathetic version of yourself. Come home. Let's be adults about this." No remorse. Just manipulation. Dressed up in pity. She didn't even say she was sorry. And the worst part, I still waited for it. Some part of me, some broken, trembling part, still hoped she'd say I was wrong. I broke something beautiful, and I see it now. But she never did. She called my sister next, told her she was worried about me, that she just wanted to talk. My sister told her I was fine, that I was somewhere peaceful, that I didn't owe her a thing anymore. And then the strangest thing happened. Silence. 3 days went by. No calls, no texts, nothing. Like she had decided if I wasn't going to play the role of the heartbroken husband, I wasn't worth her energy. But on the 4th day, a package arrived at my sister's door. No return label? Just a small box taped shut. I opened it slowly, cautiously. Inside was a single item wrapped in tissue paper, the second glittery heel, and a note. "You forgot something." That's when it hit me. She still didn't get it. She still thought I'd come back for the other shoe. When I pulled the second heel from the box, I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel hurt anymore. I just felt tired. Not physically, but deep in the kind of way that sinks into your bones when you realize someone you once trusted thinks of you as a fool. Fern's note wasn't a peace offering. It was a taunt, a final wink, a passive-aggressive jab meant to say, "You didn't really leave. You're still playing my game." But I wasn't. Not anymore. I left the shoes sitting on the kitchen counter at my sister's right next to the first one, which I brought with me without really knowing why. Side by side, they looked ridiculous. Cheap symbols of a night she would probably try to downplay for the rest of her life. But to me, they were trophies of a battle she didn't realize she lost the moment she lied with a straight face. 3 days later, I received another message. Not from Fern this time, but from someone I hadn't expected. Riley. Riley, one of Fern's party crew. The one who posted the video publicly. The one I thought might have sent the footage. The message was short. "We should talk. I've kept quiet long enough." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't want more drama. I didn't want more photos, videos, receipts. I was done watching the wreckage. But something about the tone, it didn't feel like gossip. It felt urgent. "So," I replied. An hour later, we were sitting at a booth in a quiet cafe on the edge of town. She wore oversized sunglasses like she expected someone to recognize her. I was still half convinced this was a mistake. But then she pulled out her phone, laid it on the table, and looked me straight in the eyes. "You need to know the whole truth. What you saw online? That was only the part they let get out." I blinked. "There's more." She nodded. "A lot more. I only filmed the first night. After that, I couldn't stomach it. I left early. But Fern, she didn't stop, and neither did the others. Look, Nolan, I don't care what happens between you two, but I couldn't sit back and watch her make you the punchline." "What does that mean?" She tapped her screen, then turned the phone toward me. What played was a screen recording of a group chat, a private one between Fern and her closest friends. The chat was titled Vegas 2.0. Even though the trip had been to New Orleans, the messages were all from the last 2 months, and they were brutal. "Fern Nolan thinks I'm teaching yoga Saturday morning. Meanwhile, I've got a different kind of stretch plan." Smirking face. "Celia, you're too much. Does he ever ask questions?" Fern. "Nah, he's soft like a teddy bear. Sweet, but useless. Honestly, I think I just married him so my mom would stop bugging me." "Ellie, so what's the plan now? Are you going to keep playing the loyal wife, or Fern? Thinking I'll ride it out until the lease ends? Let him feel like we drifted apart. No need to drop a bomb. He'll just cry into his soup and move on." I stopped reading. I couldn't. Something inside me cracked. Not in rage, not in heartbreak, but in humiliation. This wasn't just betrayal. It was cruelty. She wasn't just unfaithful. She had made me into a punchline. She had written me out of my own life like I was the irrelevant side character. I looked up at Riley. She was watching me cautiously, as if afraid I might explode. "Why are you showing me this now?" I asked. Her voice softened. "Because I was like her once. I treated someone like that. And I never got to make it right. When I saw how she laughed at you, how she used you like a backup plan, it brought all that guilt back. You didn't deserve this." No, I didn't. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I believed that fully. I wasn't perfect. I was quiet. I avoided conflict. I clung too hard sometimes. But I wasn't weak. I was loyal, committed, kind, and none of that gave her the right to turn my life into a cruel game. I left the cafe with everything I needed. That night, I called a lawyer. I didn't tell Fern. I didn't give her a warning. I just filed. And then I sent her the screen recordings. No message, no explanation, just the raw truth, the kind she could no longer spin. It took her 11 minutes to call. I let it ring, then I silenced it. And finally, I slept. I woke up the next morning to find 17 missed calls from Fern and 3 voicemails I didn't bother listening to. There was also a long email titled, "Please read this," sitting in my inbox. I opened it only out of curiosity, not because I needed closure, but because I wanted to see if she had finally decided to tell the truth. The email wasn't an apology, it was a plea, a frantic string of paragraphs that shifted from begging to bargaining to blaming. She said the group chat was taken out of context, that the girls were egging her on, that the dancer meant nothing, that she never thought it would go that far. She said I was being cruel by not speaking to her, that the silent treatment was childish, that I was being cold and unrecognizable. That last one almost made me laugh because she was right. I was unrecognizable, at least to the version of me she'd grown used to. The one who stayed, who forgave, who backed down, who always asked what he had done wrong every time she did something unforgivable. But that man wasn't here anymore. Instead, I replied with a single sentence. I wish you peace, but I finally found mine without you. Then I blocked her, not out of anger, not for revenge. I just didn't need the noise anymore. I didn't need to carry her chaos into my next chapter. The divorce process moved quickly. Fern didn't contest anything. Maybe she knew she had no ground to stand on. Or maybe for the first time, she realized I meant it when I walked away. There were no screaming matches, no long courtroom drama, just paperwork, signatures, and the quiet closing of a door she thought I'd never stop standing in front of. 3 weeks later, I moved out of my sister's house and into the cabin I'd been renting. I traded walls filled with memories for pine trees and mountain air. I started cooking for myself again, reading, sleeping, listening to music that wasn't chosen to fill a silence she created. And slowly, piece by piece, I began to feel like a person again. It wasn't some magical overnight transformation. I didn't wake up healed. There were nights where I still stared at the ceiling and wondered how I didn't see it coming. Days where I caught myself missing the idea of Fern, not who she was, but who I believed her to be. But the weight of her was gone, and in its place, peace. Real peace. Not the fake kind that comes from avoidance, but the kind you earn when you finally stop lying to yourself. One morning, I sat on the porch with Max curled beside me and watched the sun rise through the fog. I made a fresh pot of coffee and pulled out a small notebook I'd started using. A place where I wrote down the life I wanted to build, not the one I've been trying to survive. The first thing I wrote, gentleness is not weakness. That had always been the lie, hadn't it? That because I wasn't loud or confrontational or the alpha in the relationship, I somehow deserved less. That kindness was something to be taken advantage of. But I know better now. I wasn't weak. I was just with someone who couldn't recognize strength unless it looked like control. And when I finally stopped begging to be loved, I made room for something far better. Self-respect, real happiness, a second chance. A few months later, I met someone. Not through an app, not through friends. Just a random moment in a bookstore when we both reached for the same novel. Her name was Elise, and from our very first conversation, there was no performance, no hidden rules, no games, just ease, just honesty. We took things slow. There were no dramatic declarations or fairy tale promises. Just two people who had been through storms and knew how to cherish the calm. And me, I finally became the kind of man I wish I had been for myself years ago. Not the fixer, not the forgiver, just whole. So, if you're reading this and you're in that place where everything hurts and nothing makes sense, hold on, because I promise you, it doesn't end in the betrayal. It doesn't end in the silence.